Devil fruits are one of the most fascinating and exciting elements in the One Piece universe. Their mysterious essence grants any user a decisive advantage in a world that is filled with challenges and dangers. These fantastic and sometimes quite bizarre powers do not only create amazing fights and battles, but they also open up a world to us that seems to be full of unlimited possibilities. No matter if it's ice, fire, dragons, or bubbles, each fruit has its own unique design and skill set. But what if there were actually devil fruits with powers related to themselves? What if you could actually steal devil fruits or nullify them? And where have we already seen hints at this in the story? The concept I'm talking about here are meta devil fruits. But before we can actually go and discuss potential meta powers in the One Piece world, we first have to understand what a meta devil fruit actually is. So first, let's have a quick look at the concept of devil fruits and what the term meta actually means in this context. Devil fruits are a central part of the power system in One Piece. They are in a way the speciality of the series, in contrast to other power systems like, for example, the chakra and jutsu system in Naruto. While it is unknown where they originated from, the fruits are said to be incarnations of the Sea Devil himself, and as a result, their users lose the ability to swim, since they are from now on considered to be hated by the sea. Stored inside every fruit is a unique power that is transferred to the very first person, animal, or even object that consumes any part of it. With the possible exception of Blackbeard, it is not possible to eat more than one devil fruit during one's lifetime, and if you would, it would swiftly lead to the death of the consumer. The powers granted by those fruits can be divided into three distinct categories. The Zone type can be translated as the animal type. These devil fruits allow their user to turn their bodies into fully or partly developed animals. Logia fruit wielders are referred to as the natural type. They are granted the powers over a natural element. This does not only give them power over it, but also allows them to alter their body into the very same element, making them immune to most physical attacks. The last known category belongs to the so-called paramecia users, which translated means something like superhuman. While these fruits definitely grant their users superhuman abilities, this category also includes pretty much all those fruits that don't really fit into the other two. Now, these three categories together describe all types of devil fruits we have encountered so far over the course of the entire story. Kaido can turn into a dragon, Aokiji can turn into ice, and Katakuri loves donuts. Oh yeah, and he also can control mochi, of course. But what would meta actually mean in this context? Meta powers are a concept that is often misunderstood in many fandoms, since it can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around it. When you go on different forums or other discussion platforms, people often refer to the term meta when it comes to powers like time travel, resurrection, instant win skills, or changing fate. While all of these concepts are without a doubt very powerful and are usually out of the ordinary, none of these powers can actually be described as meta, because what the word meta really means is something that either refers to itself or is self-referential. In regard to a story, this would describe a power that is able to affect the medium at work. So, since the power system we are discussing in regard to One Piece are devil fruits, the term meta in this regard would refer to powers affecting this very same power system. Now, while this might sound a little bit confusing, it is actually pretty simple when you put it in another way. Meta devil fruits have the power to affect other devil fruits. Now, what this means is that the reference point for such a fruit would not be an animal, an element, or any superhuman ability, but the very source of exactly these powers. This would make them decisively different from the three established types and therefore would have to be put in a fourth category, namely meta devil fruits. The purpose of these fruits would be to have a countermeasure against other devil fruit users. While there actually are natural weaknesses to devil fruit powers in the world, namely seawater and sea prism stone, they often only work incompletely and only work to render the one touched by them immobile. Meta powers, however, would allow their users to actually interact and affect these powers. Now, at this point, you might already think that the introduction of such a concept is pretty unthinkable for One Piece. But before we can get into the pros and cons of having such powers in the universe, let's first have a look at some examples of potential fruits to get a better understanding of what we're really talking about here. Now, for every fruit I'm going to present to you, I will firstly state their powers and then we'll give like a short description of what this power might actually look like in the story. This will simply be a presentation of how I personally see the fruit in my head, but obviously these powers could all be incorporated into the story completely differently. So if you say, Ohara, I think this power would look completely differently, put it in the comments below and let's discuss it there. To warm up, I want to start with a relatively simple power: copying other people's devil fruits. I'm actually a little bit surprised we haven't really seen this concept yet in the story. The idea behind this is that the wielder of the, let's call it copy no Mi, can copy the ability of his opponent. While this might work in a few different ways, I like to think that it would require some sort of action to activate this power. A possible prerequisite could for example be having to touch your opponent together with a certain time limit. I would see this fruit strength rather outside of battle, since copying someone's power does not grant you their experience with the ability. So copying Luffy's rubber power would most likely not allow you to compete with Luffy on his level, since he had years to own his skills with the fruit. It would much rather be useful if it were used in stealth, so you could use the copied power for any other purpose. Open battle with the meter fruit against the person you got the power from would in my mind only be able for someone who has the wits to understand and analyze any fruit quickly and then immediately come up with creative ideas on how to use them. Nonetheless, I think it would make for some more than interesting battles if this power really existed in the story. The next potential fruit that I really want to discuss is the ability to enhance other people's powers. In essence, it would be the power to affect someone else's devil fruit and make it stronger or more effective. Again, I think this would require some limitations like a time limit or a limit to the degree of improvement. Still, I think this would make an amazing concept for a character that has a supporting role in battle. With this, you could for example increase the magnitude of Logia or Paramecia users and give more strength or additional forms to zone types. All in all, I think it would make for a very interesting meter power in the context of tactical and strategic battles. Next on, a smaller and less powerful, but nonetheless very useful power would be the power to identify other devil fruit users. Now, while this would give you very little to no advantage on a physical level, it would allow you to identify who in the enemy's group uses a devil fruit, and maybe even which one. This would in my mind require fewer prerequisites since the power is mostly based on information. Still, it would be a very useful asset to any pirate or marine crew, especially in the Grand Line that is full of devil fruit users with unknown abilities. Another potential meter power would be the ability to transfer devil fruit powers from one person to another. Compared to the fruit identification power, this could actually be used in battle very well. Transferring the power of an opponent onto one of your own comrades would not only weaken the opponent, but at the same time strengthen your side. You could also lend the power of someone who has become unable to fight to someone else. In that way, I would also rather see it in the supporting corner, but it definitely would have great potential in actual battle as well. The meter fruit I'm going to present you now, I would consider to be the most powerful of all, but at the same time, I don't think we will actually see it in the story. The ultimate meter power in regard to devil fruits would of course be the creation of new devil fruits. This would grant the user such unbelievable power that it would make it too plot inconvenient and ridiculously overpowered to be a normal power. The only way this could be integrated in some form into the story would be to tax its use with heavy restrictions or limits. Funnily enough though, there is a theory out there some of you might have heard of that proposes that the One Piece itself is in fact such a master devil fruit and that Goldie Roger ate it. The theory goes on to state that the fruit brought with it a curse that transformed the soul of anyone that Roger killed into a new devil fruit. Now, while I personally do not like this theory very much, it would actually integrate this power creation devil fruit into the story. Now, lastly, to round this up, let's talk a little bit about two relatively simple, but at the same time very relevant types of meter devil fruits. The first one I'm talking about here is the power to steal powers. This means that a user of, let's call it the steal fruit, would be able to take other people's devil fruit powers from them. Now, this could play out in very different ways. You could steal someone's power temporarily or indefinitely. You could steal it and acquire the power yourself, or you could simply rob the powers from its user and then put it back into a new fruit. Now, I think some of you have already rang a bell at this point, because the power actually does exist in the story already. For some reasons we don't know, the Blackbeard pirates are actually able to steal devil fruits from their users. Now, while it's widely speculated that this is not as much an individual power than a method of extraction, we still cannot exclude the possibility that there exists such a devil fruit out there that grants this power. Maybe not to Blackbeard himself, but to someone else. Now, the last power that I want to introduce is the power to nullify devil fruit powers. This would not mean taking their powers from them, but simply robbing them of the ability to use them. And once again, this power has actually been shown in the story before, and once again Blackbeard was involved. His Yami no Mi seems to be capable of exactly this meter power. It allows Blackbeard to drain anyone of their abilities by simply touching them. All devil fruits, be it Paramecia, Zone, or Logia, seem to be affected by this. Additionally, unlike Seawater, Sea Prism Stone, or Armament Haki, his nullification of devil fruit powers truly seems to be absolute. It works as though the devil fruit users had never gained their powers in the first place. Additionally, the Yami Yami no Mi is also considered to be unique even within the Logia type. So this fruit is actually my strongest evidence for there actually being meta powers in One Piece. It might be a hint that there is actually a fourth devil fruit category in the world after all. If you now ask yourself whether such a fruit category wouldn't be too overpowered compared to the others, consider this. Over the course of the story, for a long time, we believed that Logia users had an incredibly unfair advantage over the other categories by simply being unable to be touched, while at the same time being able to control the elements they wield. Only with the introduction of Haki did Logia users to a certain extent fall in reputation behind the Paramecia types, with the introduction of the likes of Doflamingo, Big Mom, and Katakuri wielding incredible powers. This was also emphasized by Oda by introducing Caribou and Caesar into the story after the time skip. They are seen as kind of weakish and comedic characters, comparable to Buggy before the time skip. And now, having finally arrived in Wano, people start murmuring whether Zone type users might not actually be the strongest out of the three. So if we now were to be introduced to a fourth category of devil fruit, a meta type of fruit, it would very likely be considered to be the strongest. But what this example actually shows is that the power of the different devil fruit types actually rather depends on the power level and intelligence of their user. On top of that, every fruit type, as well as every individual devil fruit, is subject to certain weaknesses that come with its power. Lightning is weak to rubber, rubber is weak to swords, swords are weak to Zoro, and Zoro is weak to geography, but that's beside the point. The point is that at a certain level, the type of the fruit you use becomes less significant, while physical strength, willpower, intelligence, and personal experience become exponentially more important. This would obviously also apply for meta devil fruits. While their power would without a doubt be incredibly strong, they would also be very situation specific, since they would only be able to target other devil fruit users. Also, each power would have to include certain conditions or prerequisites that would come with them, as can be seen in many other devil fruits. This may for example be a time limit, a limit to the amount of usages, a range limit, or even a limit to the user's health. This kind of nerfing would be necessary to ensure that meta devil fruits could fit in together with all the other three types. Now, if meta devil fruits actually existed in One Piece, where would they be and who would use them? As we discussed before, Blackbeard might very well be considered as a kind of meta fruit user already due to his nullification powers. Regarding other types of the meta category, we have to consider that many of the strongest characters haven't actually been revealed yet. We still have close to no information about the powers of 2 entire Yonko crews, as well as big parts of Kaido's crew. Additionally, we have the revolutionaries, the marines, and former old pirates that we do not know much about. What are Green Bull's powers, and what are the powers of the Roger pirates? One entity that in my mind is the most likely to be in possession of such powers would be the world government, or rather the Gorosei and 𝙼𝚘𝚘. Due to their battle scars, we can expect the Gorosei to actually be experienced in battle, and also 𝙼𝚘𝚘 will most likely have some sort of devil fruit ability. Now, since the world government will most likely have hoarded the strongest devil fruits to keep and use for themselves, meta devil fruits would be the ideal choice to deal with the biggest threats to their reign.